What? Oh, okay. I was just drinking a bunch of cola, and apparently it got me a little gassy. But wait, what am I doing? Yes, today, this is Ask Christian Anarchist number 10. Yes! I have made it. I've reached that 10 point. And now I just gotta hope that my career does not go downhill from here. And apparently I have my other audio thing going on. So there we go. Anyways, yes, this is the show where Christian Anarchist answers your questions. And I will try to make sure I give the best answer as I can to the best of my ability. I am an apologist, especially a Christian apologist, and I am called to do just such. Now then, sorry for the delay, but we are back on, and it's time we get this show underway. So, if you want the link, be sure you ask, and I'll make sure you get in as soon as possible. And I don't know why I'm speaking with a British accent for some reason, but
that's cultural appropriation right there. I'm suing you.
No, you're not. Anyways, so let's go ahead and just get down to it. If you're wishing to join the live chat, just send me a message. I'll send you the link. Might send a link in the live chat. But also ask your questions from there too. So until then, let's get to the first question. We're going to start with a first come, first served order. And first person that got in here, why am I still wasting my time with you? The perverted demon. You do not deserve to have your name spoken in public.
You love me?
No, I don't.
You should have me as your I don't know, whatever.
Cub? What are you saying?
I should co-run this show with you.
Oh, my co-host, yeah.
Yeah, that's the fella. I should be your co-host.
Yeah, you'll probably either be A, the holy angel, or B, a demon that's just drenched in a bunch of holy water, or in your case, acid, by the time I'm done with you. Anyways, what the heck's your question, my friend?
I don't know, you know I don't come prepared for this.
Mm-hmm. By the way, try to be careful. I just found out apparently my cousin is watching this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's you better watch yourself now.
I'll try to amp down the strangeness.
Yeah, you're playing strange.
I know I am.
So what's your question, man?
I did ask about your dating situation.
My what?
Your love life situation.
Well,
love life situation?
Right, we're going off to the weird part of it already. Don't have a love life so far. I'm just so far just solo man, single man, me being on my own. That's about it.
Oh, that sounds like a fun night, that does.
All right. If you got another question, then just make sure you ask that when that comes around. Was that seriously your question?
I don't know. You know I don't come prepared for this.
No, you do not. All
you
right.
Just send me the link, I hop on.
All right, so we'll just go ahead and head to the next one. Sister Hipster, if you got a question, just type it in the side chat, and I'll be sure to answer it. Sister Hipster, we tried to get her mic working. We don't know what the heck happened, so if anyone has any who will join in, if anyone can help out with that, is using like earphone mic type of stuff, and for some reason it won't work. So if you know how to fix this problem, then let us know, and hopefully we can probably resolve that. But we tried going in and out, tried plugging the jack out, plugging the jack back in, hasn't been working. So if anyone can help, that would be most appreciative right now. So while we wait for her question, best to put on an advertisement for this. I recently did a debate today, and we're going to try tomorrow to have it posted, a copy of it posted on my channel so you can see that. So we'll see how that turns out. But until we get to Sister Hipster's, so Sister Hipster types out a question, we'll go to Justin Wilson. who also known as the Adventist Hermes. Justin, how you doing?
Good.
All right. What is your question for the anarchist today?
Well, after our debate, you said something that surprised me. You said that you never said, or you don't believe, or Calvinists don't believe that the majority will be lost.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true? You believe that the majority will be saved?
I think we don't know the number. I think what the scripture did say, based on what I did read, though, was that many will be saved, as what the text implies.
Okay, because when it comes to I thought it was obvious. I thought it was common knowledge. Like scriptures like this, it says, "Enter into the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leads unto the life, and few there be that find it." So he says clearly that many will be lost, as many will go down the broad way, which is destruction, and few will find the narrow way, which is the life. But you say that many will be saved. Like you have it flipped.
Based on what I've read from the text, yes. However, I also don't have a number as a Calvinist of who all will be saved according to my theology. We don't get that number, and so we don't make that decision. So we can't say there are as many that we know will be lost, and we can't say ultimately that there are many who are unelect and stuff like that. It's pretty much just that's up between someone and God. That's the whole point, is that I have not yet seen any Calvinistic writing that has affirmed the idea that only a small, tiny few are going to be saved in the end.
So, because what I just read, which is the Bible, should be Calvinist. It clearly says many. They're talking about the way to destruction.
Yes, and the Bible
about salvation.
Yes, and the Bible also says that many will be saved too. So that's the thing we have to take into consideration when looking at it.
Where does it say many will be saved?
You did not remember that from the debate we had?
No, I didn't say anything about many will be saved. He says that he died.
A ransom for many. According to Calvinism, though, you do believe that we affirm that Christ died for those he saves, right?
Well, yeah, but
there you go.
So, in other words, where it says that he died for many, that means he saved many.
Yes.
So right here, where it says that many will be few will actually enter into the gate or to the straight and narrow way, that's a contradiction to
no.
He said, or
no, it's not a contradiction.
So when it says many will go down into destruction, that has nothing to do with salvation?
That does have something to do with salvation. However, the point is that you said that was a contradiction. I say that the only way it would be a contradiction is concerning what is to happen. So concerning what does the passage say itself?
Well, it says, "Enter ye into the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. Many there that go thereat. But because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leads to life, and few there be that find it."
And what's the chapter for that one?
Matthew 7, verse 13.
Matthew 7, verse 13. So let's take a look at that one.
I thought everyone pretty much knew that the vast majority of people will be lost because most people take the broad way, and it threw me off when you thought that most people will be saved.
And you're going to have to also reconcile the other passages where it talks about a many that Jesus dies for, a ransom for many.
Well,
Do you
yeah,
believe when he says ransom, that's talking about his crucifixion?
yeah, that helps out my point, because we believe that Jesus died for the whole world, but not the
But
whole world choose to be saved.
but that doesn't say every single individual, and it says many. Many is still a limitation.
Yeah, and then I brought up the fact that many became sinners. Now you believe that everyone is or was a sinner, right?
Yeah.
So then, if you see that that's the case for that thing, then I mean for that verse, then you understand that same kind of meaning carries over.
So concerning what that says when it says, "And many there be which go in thereat," John Gill has commented on this part, saying, "Even all men in a state of nature, the way of the ungodly is broad, smooth, easy, and every way agreeable to the flesh. It takes in a large compass of vices and has in it abundance of company, but its end is destruction." Our Lord seems to allude to the private and public roads, whose measures are fixed by the Jewish canons, which say the following, quote, "A private way was 4 cubits broad, a way from city to city 8 cubits, a public way 16 cubits, and the way to the cities of refuge 32 cubits." So the point that I believe is being illustrated in this is that when it says broad is the way, need be that go into it, is concerning that there is so much vice and so much things that definitely are in this world that are sinful and carnal, that we are bound to approach it at some point, but we are told to enter through the narrow gate, which there's meaning, the old saying, there's only one way to God. There's only one way to Christ. It ain't Allah. It ain't Muhammad. It's not Buddha. So we only have Jesus as that one way, and that's what I believe is being in the reference of that particular passage.
Yeah, I think that's quite obvious. It's just I think you clearly left out the fact that what most people end up going is the Broadway, which is to destruction.
Yes, and what causes that person to go to destruction?
Well, the person.
What does the person do?
Well, the person chooses to sin. So I mean, whether we say God decreed them to that life, or the person
What did they
choose.
do? I'm asking the question. I mean, what did they do at that point? Did they sin?
Wait, how did I not answer that question? I said because they
Well,
choose
you
to.
sounded like you were going somewhere, and then you stopped, and then just went to trying to ask something.
No, yeah, I was saying that they choose to sin. So whether they choose to
Yes.
curse, lie, steal, I mean,
Mhm.
or they choose to have a both and kind of life, which is a lukewarm life,
Mhm.
have a Christian, kind of lifestyle, and also have a pagan lifestyle, whichever.
Mhm.
It's very broad. It's acceptable, but at the same time, it's not the way.
Right.
But most people go there, which means most people end up going to destruction, which totally contradicts your point, in which you believe that most people will be saved.
Again, I'm trying not to say that I have an absolute knowledge of who all will be there. However, when I look at the text, I'm particularly getting many. However, someone else might disagree with me, and that's fine. Ultimately, I don't think anyone knows who all will go to heaven or hell. That is something that's only between God and the person he judges.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's all I see. I mean, of course, the argument isn't that we know the exact number, whether it's 29 billion people, but whether we know whether it's many or few. And the text actually, the Bible speaks about the many or the few. It doesn't say that the few will be lost, but it says the few will be saved. So that's my only issue,
Mhm.
and the fact that it actually helps my point even more, considering that he was a ransom for many, but yet many are not going to be saved. which you would admit to. Because if that was the case, when he says that many are called, but few are chosen, then yeah, the fact that he called many, or he died for many, then that means the vast majority of people, which should be lost, should be saved. And this whole idea that broad is the way, then yeah, it should say broad is the way to salvation, because Jesus died for the majority.
Well, then again, you're hoping that something reads to it in your own dialect. I want to know what exactly it says in their language and in their tongue, and then I have to understand their culture to understand what it means, what they mean by that. We do the same thing when we make a new translation, like when Jesus says, forget what the passage is, he says, let these words sink into your ears. We don't talk like that anymore, but apparently that's what they talk like in their day. But what do we say now that means the exact same thing? Listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you, which is what some of the modern translations contain, and that is exactly what the main message and overall point is. So I want to understand what is the whole point that's being brought about. I don't want it to reword it how some Muslims will saying, well, Jesus needs to directly say, I am God, in order to prove the Trinity. That's just a failed standard, and that doesn't work, because you're asking the ancient text to conform to what the modern person wants for evidence, and that's not going to happen. So concerning the text, based on what I'm looking at in the commentaries right now, they only understand this as it's referring to the ways of sin. There are many ways to sin, and that's referring to the broad way. And that's what leads to destruction, is sin. Sin leads to destruction. And if you're staying on that path, then that's where you're going to be led to. But so that's why he's saying, go to the straight gate instead. This is basically verses 12 through 14 is basically the path, a good old classical Jesus saying, repent, turn from your wicked ways and go towards the light. That is basically what Jesus is saying at this point when we're looking at the context.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point anymore. I think
Okay.
I made the case.
Okay. So before we go to logical, we were waiting on sister's question. So when she's finally typed it out. All right. What does the Bible say concerning materialism from a Jewish perspective and from a Christian perspective? Well, wish I was Jewish or something like that. Then I would probably be able to answer that in a more clear sense. But I say concerning materialism, definitely when you had the ancient Israelites, especially in the Old Testament times, they weren't really the mystical type. I mean, sure, they believed in some strange things, like they believed in the concept of the flat dome Earth and a couple other things, but the main thing was the whole point was that they were very spiritual. They were focused on the parts of that it's God that works in everything. Some people will try to point to materialism based on who was it? Arcane Logos, fantastic and weird, interesting individual who states that it wasn't God that parted the Red Sea from Moses, but rather it was some kind of power source that Moses had, and then they put that power source in the Ark of the Covenant, and that power source was what was used to wipe out their enemies in battle. I don't know where they get this idea, and apparently there might be a slight few that agree with this aspect. But mainly I think the Jewish perspective is rather you're conservative or one of the reformed liberal types. It's mainly a spiritual aspect, in my opinion. And the same goes for the Christian, is that while we aren't Gnostics, Gnosticism is a big heresy because it basically teaches you to reject everything material and focus more on just the spiritual, and you get like this spiritual knowledge going on. But we're told to be in that we shouldn't like the world, but but nonetheless we're still in it, and we're going to have to be in it and try to be at the same time not of the world. So we're in it, just don't be of it. In other words, don't conform to certain trends that compromise your faith, basically. If you can do something like, I'm a voice actor and I'm currently working on a couple of a little abridged series with a couple of people, and I currently work on my own projects as a Christian voice actor. I'm working on, recently I just got casted as Frankie and Usopp for a One Piece abridged series, and I play Vegeta for a Dragon Ball Super abridged. But I'm
you as Vegeta. I've got to hear that.
I'll show you that. I'll show you that another time. Yeah, we'll do that off air if we get time. But what happens is that I got a script one time, and I'm like, wow, there is some foul language on this one. So they know what my faith is. They know my limitations. If they can't deal with that, then they can fire me all they want, and I can go find another job. I don't let them conform what my views are spiritually, and I believe that I have to control and tame my tongue, and I don't need to be spouting off this. But they like the improv that I managed to pull up with. I was supposed to repeat the B word at one point, but I just like played on and just managed to still make it funny for the people.
You'll never beat Purple Hair, Purple Eyes, WTF, One Piece abridged. You'll never beat it. It's just the pinnacle. Not. It's the pinnacle of abridged.
Then we might not. All right. So, anyways, where was I going at? Oh, yes. But yeah, that's mainly it. Is that, Jewish perspective, and at least I'm speaking partly on that, and Christian perspective, materialism basically just means that you're going to let the material world dominate the spiritual. I mean, if you're, say, like a theistic evolution or something like that, that's fine if you hold to it, but you're using the Bible as your final authority, and you manage to differ with the naturalist on some things. To me, that's more consistent and more biblical. But if you're going to be one of those types that say that we have to change and ignore things in the Bible because of what science has said, then you're basically saying that the Bible gets things wrong on something. And if you're going to say that, and at that point, that means that we can't trust the Bible in one sense. If we can't trust it in one sense, we can't trust it in pretty much any sense. It starts to be, we have to question everything. And unfortunately, a good bit of the Methodist churches have done that, with 50% of them denying the resurrection and at least 87% denying the inerrancy and the authority of the scriptures, at least. So that's the one thing I worry about with the materialism aspect. But I think true Christianity is founded upon scriptures and the spiritual aspect as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
Methodists do that?
Unfortunately, and that poll was from 1987. So next year, that will be 30 years since that has happened. And with the rate as politics has gone so far, it wouldn't surprise me if that statistic has increased.
Ouch.
But I'm not picking on Methodists. There's my Baptist pastor. He reads from John Wesley, so we favor the founder of the Methodist movement concerning some things he says.
I see.
Yes. So thank you for your question, sister. And if you got another one, just save it up and prepare to type it out, and we'll get on it if we got time.
I actually have a question for once.
Oh, wait, what the? Who's got a question?
That would be me.
Oh, Anase, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm playing World of Warcraft. Specifically, odd coincidence, I'm playing my Warlock, which means I'm commanding demons and such.
Blasphemy.
Well, would you prefer I swap over to my demon hunter?
Yes, actually, that would be perfect.
Oh, sorry. Actually,
Fuck.
that is also blasphemous because demon hunters use the power of fel and demon energy and such in order to fight demons.
Oh, so you're part of the Catholic Church then?
Ah,
I kid.
It's kind of like being
Favorite
Spawn. Are you familiar with
If Slim
Spawn?
Jim is watching this, I apologize, but you know I sometimes go with these jokes. Anyways,
Are you familiar with Spawn? Because it's kind of like that.
yes, I'm familiar with Spawn. So what's your question, my friend?
Okay, so the question, you're not one of those people who believes that everything bad in the world is Satan's doing, right?
No, and I have dealt with these people, and mostly this comes from like the deliverance ministry type of people. They believe that every single bad thing in this world comes from like either Satan or demons themselves, and that's where
Yo.
you have this idea. Yes, of course, perverted demon in here. He's one of my bad reasons. He's the reason I have a headache every single time he's on here.
you love me, don't lie. Come
That
on.
wasn't my main question, just by the way. That was me trying to make sure I understand something about your beliefs before I go forward.
Okay, well,
So then the actual question is then, since you don't believe that Satan is responsible for everything, my question is effectively, what is he doing? Is he just running, like, I don't know, the evil governments in the shadows, or rather than, like, everything that's annoying to you? Like, what is he doing?
Well. You gotta understand that because those demons are in the government, that's where they gotta be. Good old Rand Camp joke. Anyways, Satan is basically, in a sense, still plotting things. Now, hear me out on this. Basically, are you familiar with the Book of Job?
Yeah, kind of.
So remember,
I won't say I've read it, but I know the story.
right? So you remember what happens in the beginning whenever things start going on with that bet, right?
What do you mean specifically?
Well, Satan is basically trying to say, you only give him, he's only thanking you because you give him those things. Take them away, and he will curse you, and then comes the bet that he makes, saying that Satan then has the power and the authority to go and cause harm unto Job. So, and things like this, sometimes.
That was a really dick move on God's part, I'll be fair.
Well, that's in your opinion. But anyways,
come on, man. That was one of the times that God was worse than Satan. You've got to be like.
anyways, so concerning the this particular instance, Satan is given a weight is lifted. You can do this. Is basically what he is saying. So there are times that God gives some kind of amount of grace upon Satan to do something, but ultimately God is only doing that for a purpose, and that's the whole point. Otherwise, Satan has absolutely no other power to go over and cross boundaries he's not allowed to cross.
So does that mean that Satan is effectively a tool of God?
He can be used by God for such. So, for example, are you familiar also with 2 Corinthians, I believe, chapter 12?
No.
Okay. In that passage, and I'm going to check to see if that's the right one, there is a mention of the Apostle Paul getting a thorn in the side of his flesh. And he called this a messenger of Satan. Now, some people want to call it that he was possessed by a demon or something like that because it's called the messenger of Satan. But the real thing is that while it can be interpreted as many things, even then, while that has its case, ultimately God has a purpose for it. So it's called the messenger of Satan. So let's say it's one interpretation that some people think, which is some ruler that's making Paul's life a living nightmare. He's like, it's hard for him to preach in certain places and such because of so much persecution. He says the following in verse 8, "For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me." He prayed to God that it may depart from him. But he said, then it's verse 9. It says, "My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." Then Paul states that most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong. So there are certain moments where terrible things can be used and good can be brought about. So I can name one personal thing on the top of my hand that was a disaster for one person, but it ended up bringing a whole family together with someone that just he was distant from his family and now managed to finally bring together. So the same thing could be happening with, say, like Job and such like that, in the case where Satan is ultimately being used by God in the end, even though Satan might not know it, for a purpose to show off the glory of God, and that is that no matter what happens, God is still going to be glorified in the midst of pain and suffering. And I think that's one of the best messages I get from the book of Job, is that when Job is going through all this suffering, what ultimately happens until the end is that Job, even at that one point he questions, that he recognizes that God is sovereign and that he's the creator and that he has the right to, as he gives life, has the right to take it. And so it comes to the sense of humbling and humility. So ultimately, those things can be seeming bad to us at that moment. We have to keep in mind that sometimes when we're blind to it, ultimately what's actually behind it is some actual good, and it takes a while for us to actually wake up and see that.
Things like these makes me question, though. God does all these things as tools for people to learn or other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
If he's omnipotent, though, he doesn't have to make anyone suffer in order to learn any of these lessons.
You're right. He doesn't have to, but that's the key word. I'm going to sound like my pastor right now. The key word you used was "have to." So, and that's a lot of thing. If someone was a god, they could do things their own way. However, right now that's not the case. Right now we have Yahweh, Elohim, whatever you want to call it for the Hebrew word at this point. And what matters is, what did he do and why did he do it at this point? Why does he do what he does? That's the thing. So we're not God, he is, and there's still a purpose and a reason for why he is doing it. So he could do it in many different ways. So I don't think the question should be why. It should be, how else could he have done it, but why exactly did he do it this way? And that's
Which is the question I'm sort of trying to bring up here. It's what's the point in doing unnecessary suffering when you can accomplish the same goal without the suffering?
Well, what makes you think that the suffering is unnecessary?
Because God is omnipotent, and therefore he has the ability to reach his goals without creating suffering, because otherwise then he's not omnipotent.
Well, where do you get that standard, though?
What do you mean by standard?
Like, so you're defining that if he doesn't do something, then he's not omnipotent. Where do you get the standard that if he doesn't do it a certain way, then he's not omnipotent?
No, I'm not saying that he does. It's not because he doesn't do it that he's therefore not omnipotent. If he can't do it without creating unnecessary, all right, let me backtrack and reword this a little bit more carefully.
Okay.
You have the goal, whatever. Let's say we're looking at Job. The goal is, let's say, teach him humility and to be humble or something. And God's method in the story is that he uses Satan as a tool and creates suffering in order to achieve this goal. And what I'm saying is that if God could not have achieved that goal, was incapable of achieving that goal without creating suffering, then he is not omnipotent and he has some limitation.
Did I respond to that?
Oh, hold on. Go ahead, Anase.
Well, that was the end of it.
Okay. So here's the thing. God can do it however he wants, but if he chooses a certain way, that's his business, that's his right, and that's just how he chooses to do so. So
Well,
it's not a matter of he can't do something, but rather with what we say is that he chooses to do so because that is what he wishes to do, and he has every right to do so, and we don't have a right to question it since we are basically the jars of clay crafted by the potter. Basically, you're created by the potter, and God is the potter. So if there's a purpose of which he crafts a certain pot, then there's a reason why.
Yeah, but then you get into the argument of, well, I mean, if he could do it a different way, which, again, he's all powerful, why didn't he? Because he's all good, so wouldn't he want to do it the way that involved the least suffering? And
right.
Job does suffer. Job does
By
definitely
whose
suffer.
standard, though, are you going by? You going by
We're
yours?
going by a secular humanist standard that values human health and success and happiness, among other things.
Wait, so secular. You said secular humanist, right?
Yeah.
All right. So there's the problem there when you're trying to put that with the God thing. Secular is it automatically takes God out of the equation, does it not?
It's God is unnecessary because you don't need God for morality is the idea.
Right. So why put a secular standard to a theological standard which says that a God is needed?
Because if you're
why not at
talking
least
about
put like a deist standard or some other theist standard instead?
Because if you were talking about theological morality, then the rules, as far as I understand, are effectively whatever God says, and that's not actually morality because morality concerns human health and well-being and so on.
Well, concerning
Says who?
That's just the definition, and I'm also working with my experience talking to other people who believe that secular humanist moral systems are not superior; they are inferior to theological moral systems. And what I'm just trying to say here is that if you're talking about generally when they talk about these rules, it's whatever God says. So if God decides to wipe out the entire earth, that's okay. And what I'm saying is that if we're talking about a system that is not about human health and well-being, then we're not talking about morality.
All right, so before we're gonna try
it's a definition thing.
All right, hold on. So because we need to try to move on, but before I get with my thing, Sister Hipster I just wanted to read this because this sounded interesting. Said that with your question, she's thinking about all dogs go to heaven 1 and 2. That apparently come to her mind because of the overall theological themes.
I only saw the second of those movies. I don't think I ever saw the first.
I remember mostly the second, just not barely the first, but I've seen it. But anyways, trying to go back to the question, I'll just leave it with this, is that the difference between the secular humanist and the theological person is that concerning and I've asked them, and it's always the same answer, that all morality is subjective. While we say that there's an objective moral standard, and that is what God has put for writing the law in our hearts, for example, that's what it states. And that the Bible also contains a bit of what the law is, and that helps us understand it a bit better. So hold on.
Okay. I want to insert a thought into that. I'll let you go though.
All right. So then ultimately, if that's the case, if your stating is right, that it's ultimately up to human well-being. I mean, just to help me out here, do you think that a human well-being is then subjective?
Okay. So you're asking me a question.
Just yes or no. Like, is it subjective?
Do I think that human well-being is subjective?
Yes.
Well, I guess yes and no. It slightly depends on what the words mean. I don't mean to sound like I'm not trying to avoid the question. I just don't quite know exactly how to answer the question.
Like, is it up to, does the well-being depend on the individual person for that?
Well, I can say that I don't know if this answers your question. I can say that without humans, there wouldn't be human morality. So in that sense, it would be subjective.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
For some people, some people would find it a well-being for them, for say rape, because of the quick sexual release for some people. But at the same time, then the dilemma of the person who's being raped is not that's definitely a issue in and of itself. And then you have recently there was a story about a dog that was slaughtered. For example, these guys were just laughing, and they found it funny to grab a dog and just slit its throat and laugh at it while it's dying like that. They didn't think there was anything really wrong with that, unfortunately. So there are some people that have different views of morality, and some people, apparently one person that on YouTube I saw thinks that there's nothing really wrong with pedophilia, and thinks that there can be some benefits to society if a person is allowed to fulfill those desires. So then comes the subjective debate there, that ultimately it's a debate of what's right or wrong, and then you have certain societies that are going to have disagreements and agreements on that. So do you have a very mixed up standard of what's right and wrong? But in the Christian worldview, we have an objective standard, and we've tried our best, and I think I've achieved a very consistent way of doing so, to be consistent with the moral worldview that we have obtained. So
I can't really agree or disagree with your statements, because I think subjective and objective needs to be defined a little bit, because I know of a few different ways to use those words.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't quite agree or disagree. There's some nuance here that needs to be explored. I guess I could put it like that.
See,
Okay.
the subjective comes from within, objective is from outside.
Well, there you go.
That's actually not quite helpful.
Right. Well,
so for
In the
and I'll
Christian
say,
worldview, it is.
and I'll say, I'm sorry to cut you off there, but we need to
Sure, go ahead.
try to move on. All right, so trying to remember who all came in. Okay, so Logical goes next, and then John, and then General. Hey, Logical, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I can't say
Hey,
I'm doing bad.
The logical Christian wanted to ask a question.
I that's why I'm going to him. So
Sorry.
Logical, you got so. I'm gonna go ahead and ask it. What's your question, my friend?
Well, I was hoping to get this in sooner because I have to get back to studying. But anyway,
All right, Well, let's try to make it quick then, so that way you can get to your studies.
Okay. Remember Antonio Valentini, that Jehovah's Witness I told you about?
Yes, the Jehovah's Witness.
I tried looking at the context of this one verse,
Okay.
but I'm still not understanding it. 1 Corinthians 8:6.
Which one?
1 Corinthians 8:6.
Okay.
It says that only the Father is God.
But to us there is but one God, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in him, and one Lord Jesus Christ, by whom all things, and we by him.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Oh wait, that's kind of interesting. And one Lord Jesus Christ, by whom all things are made.
Yes, and we by him. So, wait, what?
Nothing. I didn't say anything.
Okay, so let me try to go by one thing, because one of my favorite commentators and a breakdown thing is always John Gill. So concerning when it says, but to us there is but one God the Father, and note that John Gill, one of his favorite things to look at was Old Testament and Hebrew studies. So concerning this, he says, quote, in this, Christians and Jews agree with the best and wisest philosophers of the Gentiles that there is but one God, which is clear from the perfections of God, as necessary existence, infernity, infinity, omnipotence, all-sufficiency, goodness, and perfection, from one first cause of all things, from the government of the world, from the writings of the Old and New Testament, so that to us, believers, this point is out of all doubt. But who this one God is, the Gentiles knew not, and the Jews are very ignorant of. But we Christians know him to be the Father, by whom mean either God essentially considered the one God, Father, Son, and Spirit, called the Father, not in relation to any person in the Godhead, but in relation to the creatures. So this one God, Father, Son, and Spirit is, by the way, just before I continue, this is still one sentence from Gill. He was very crafty at that, is the Father of spirits, the creator of angels, and the souls of men. The God of all flesh, the Father of all the individuals of human nature, the Father or author of all the mercies and blessings the children of men enjoy. So there's one aspect. So I don't think this is ultimately just limiting that the only God limited is the Father, because if that's the case, and this person clings to, the idea that, there's just but one God and it's the Father, the one problem we then deal with that the person needs to answer, especially him, I can't remember where exactly it is, but it's when doubting Thomas sees Jesus and he answers him as his Lord and God. So why, if there's only one God, why is Jesus then being assumed as such? Is he looking at the Father, or is this something else?
Well, Christian Anarchist, 1 Corinthians 8:6 is a classic two powers in heaven text.
Well, one of those two. Okay, so it's a part of the two powers. What you call that thing again? The divine council.
Yeah, the divine council is the council of the gods, but the ruler of the council is the Godhead. So the two powers, the Lord for my Lord sit at my right hand, that sort of thing.
I'm gonna have to still take a look at that Michael Heiser thing, because this is still almost vague to me. But
I'll give you a hint. Look at the Shema in the Septuagint.
Okay.
1 second.
By the way, I just now noticed there is at least 4 members of Spiritually Honest Ministries in here. Me, John Wilkinson, Logical Christian, and General Han Solo. So
And me.
party in the house.
And then there's just me, guys sitting here.
Look at the Septuagint of the Shema, and you will see that
what's the
Paul
Shema?
actually, the Deuteronomy 6:4, the Lord told, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord.
All right, so let me find that real quick. Hold on a sec.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wait, can I say something real quick?
Wait, hold on a sec. I need to look this up. Okay, I got the Septuagint in English translation.
Oh,
Hear, O Israel.
You have to compare the Greek with the Greek of 1 Corinthians 8:6.
Well, you're gonna have to do that one for me then.
The other verse. So this is just, we don't have to do that now. I'm just saying this is how Paul connected it. So he connected Deuteronomy 6:4 with Zechariah 14 verse 9, and basically is saying you have one God, the Echad, the uniqueness, the oneness of this being that we worship. First, the Father, and notice the Father is not even in the Shema, so he's adding in Father here, and then he says one Kurios, one Yahweh, Jesus Christ, and therefore it's this unity and then diversity. So you have the two powers. You have the invisible God, or the invisible Yahweh, which is the Father, and then the visible Yahweh, the second Yahweh, which is the Son. And this is you can't get any more clearer than what Paul's getting at in this verse. This shoots down any form of Unitarian perspectives.
Oh, does that answer your question, Logical?
All right, I gotta go. See you guys later.
See you later, Anase.
Yeah, I'd say that answers it pretty much. But can I say one thing before I go?
Sure.
You just gave me a great idea.
Really?
You said that there are 4 people here on the Spiritually Honest Ministries team.
Yes.
You, me, General, and who else?
John Wilkinson. He's our what would we called you our polemics expert?
I think that's what it was. Yeah, polemics.
Yes. He's written a couple articles. Yeah. My favorite one was what Reformed theology is not, and I think that was a very good article.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm working on my 3rd article for that 5-part series I'm doing.
All right on, man.
Yeah. So I was thinking, what if we had a show where the members of Spiritually Honest Ministries team would be in the chat group, and we could ask each other questions. I mean, and people could ask all of us questions, kind of similar to your show.
What do you
Be
think? Quite interesting. I mean, that's what I kind of like think we do sometimes with as Christian Anarchist. If somebody like General or you or John Wilkinson comes on, we can do that. But I think what's an interesting thing is one day we just need to get everybody that's on the team in one hangout one day for like a celebration.
I agree.
Like, so far, I think if I'm correct, I'm at need 50 more subscribers to reach 600. At that point, I think I might consider doing that because that would be awesome.
Well, cool.
Before Logical Christian goes, here's the chiastic connection to show you visually. So, but for us, one God the Father. Sorry?
I can't read Greek.
No, it's in English.
This is in English.
It's
to show you the chiastic nature of the text.
Oh, okay.
So, but for us, one God the Father, out of whom come all things, and we go toward him. And notice the relationship: one God, one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom come all things, and we go to the Father through him. So, and as Smith says here, this is Jesus Christ is closely as possible with the Father, the connection.
For some of the people that might not be familiar, who is Smith here?
He's a scholar.
Okay.
It's in this commentary, yeah. But you can see Deuteronomy 6:4 as a connection, and so yeah. Anyway.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate the answers, guys, but unfortunately, I have to get back to study.
All right. Well, take care and don't study too hard. Don't wanna fry the brain.
I one time gave myself a headache studying for an American government EOC, and it paid off because I got an A.
Well, there you go. All that hard work, my friend.
All right. Well, hasta luego. Adolfo Bedonia.
Shalom alaikum. That's all I will say.
Yeah.
All right. See
Hasta la pasta.
A greeting by the Pastafarians. Hasta la pasta.
That's racist. Yeah. That's cultural appropriation. On the scene.
All right. So up next we have our own member, John Wilkinson. John, how the heck are you, buddy?
I'm good, man.
How was home?
Good. Ridiculous.
Oh man!
For you guys don't know, I'm a vendor for Home Depot. I work for Crown Bolt, so I stock all the nuts, bolts, screws, door stops, door hinges, all that fun stuff. So I'm there at 5 a.m. in the morning. Sometimes I have to drive like an hour and a half just to go to one particular store.
So just like James White, you deal with a lot of nuts.
You can sell me a good screw.
Damon, why?
Just go to Vegas for that, all right? Just.
But why when I could come to such a screw expert?
Oh my goodness. Anyways, John, before this turns into something weird, what's your question?
Actually, I don't really have a question. I was just jumping in to see what's going on here. So, sorry.
That's cool. Well, you see what's going on here so far. If you want, you can stick around. If your feedback like from earlier with the morality question, is always welcoming and helpful as usual. All right. So up next, what the Jay? I'm trying to figure out what your picture is. And he's still AFK, I believe.
It's like an anime character, but most of him is Galaxy. And then he's got his hair, and then he's looking up into like a galaxy. I think it's a galaxy. It's something like that.
Yeah.
Or right. I don't know, something along those lines.
All right then. General, are you here?
I don't know. It says something.
I will unbroadcast you, demon.
What?
What? Nothing. Anyways, General Han Solo, are you there?
Yes.
Do you have a question for me, or are you just here too?
I literally just came in.
Well, if you want, you got. If you want to ask a question later on, feel free to do so.
All right.
All right. So, Cameron, how is the moderator for the debate I was just in earlier?
That was a fun debate. I think it was the best one that I've moderated that you were in. Justin had very, very good opening statements. I don't think he was very good in the rebuttal period, but he was, as I said, by far, I think he was the toughest person I think that you've debated.
Cameron, who do you think won?
That's tough. I'm not sure.
I asked the Christian Anarchist earlier, but who do you think won?
I'd hate to say it, but I think Justin won because his opening and closing statements were better.
He spat the most fire, did he?
You killed him in the cross-examination period, but
yeah, that's like 1 out of 2.
Yeah, you had him pinned up against the wall, but like at last second, he would kind of give these like okay responses. They weren't good, but they were good enough, and I think that was kind of. And plus, I think your closing statement might have been pretty okay. It's just your mic wasn't working. Like it was very robotic.
I found that was a problem there. That they and I should have also been a bit more graceful. I did get a little too emotional on the end, but it's when someone misrepresents your position that all of a sudden that's when things get out of hand, it seems. So
well, Christian, did you see the discussion I and Reds and Shadow and Steve McRae had with Justin in Steve's hang-up like 2 days ago?
No, what happened there?
Oh boy, it's.
I'll talk with you about that after the show, then, because that sounds like.
I wasn't trying to offend you there, Anarchist. Don't.
No,
I'm not going to say anything.
Honest criticism is fine with me. So let's see here. I
don't know if question.
All right. Well, before you ask, if anyone is still watching in the live chat, feel free to submit your question on the live chat, and I will be sure to get to it. I know I saw someone earlier, but I'm not sure if y'all are still watching, so I don't want to answer these and y'all are not here. I want to make sure that some people are still here. So if y'all want, y'all can repost it, and I'll get back to you. So, Cameron, go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, I was asking, I think you had an encounter with Justin the last time that you did this, and it was about Adam and his desires. And tell you ultimately said Adam was responsible because he was free to do otherwise, and that his nature was perfect, but he had a range of choices available. The question I'm asking is, do you think, in a soft libertarian sense, do you think Adam was free?
In a soft libertarian sense, Adam free? Good question. Because this is an interesting one for even Calvinists in general. Some people will say that he was free on a libertarian level until he did sin. I think it's still a compatibilistic view because he's still responding to a nature that he has, but it's not really the sinful nature just yet. But he still had desires, and he's going to appeal to them if that time comes. So him, Adam, and Eve are given choices, and they're going to act upon those choices based on influences and desires that they have. And so they desired at that point to listen and heed the words of the snake when it spoke the tempting words to them. It got to them, and they, out of their desire, disobeyed God. So I think, to me, that is still consistent. But I don't have a problem with people who affirmed that libertarian free will happened for Adam and Eve in the before the fall. I mean, I think that can also be something that can be seen. But if they're going to say that, kind of like Pelagius, that things remained unchanged even afterwards, then I think that we come to a problem.
Yeah, and I have a follow-up to that. And this is essentially, I think R.C. Sproul Jr. went over this. He went over all the culprits that could be behind the fall. You could point towards Adam, and he ultimately wasn't the direct initiator of the situation, but his nature wasn't really corrupted. The environment in and of itself, I'm excluding the serpent and whatnot, wasn't really corrupted. Eve's nature at the time wasn't really corrupted, and ultimately the issue is, and I'm not saying this is an issue. I'm kind of agnostic on this issue, but I'm saying ultimately it does seem like at least the first initial corruption of a nature that would lead to sin in some regard, or lead to the temptation of sin, ultimately would seem like it would have to be directly due to God changing their desires by working with their nature a certain way. I just ask your thoughts. I'm unsure. I apologize if this is a weird question.
So ultimately, what's the question again? I'm trying to.
I'm asking how would you respond to something like that? Because it does seem like if you affirm compatibilistic freedom, that you would have to have God corrupting or changing the nature of or the desires of something, because desires are directly influenced by nature on compatibilism.
Well, I don't think he has to corrupt it. I think that people ultimately do that themselves. I mean, it's just there, and they chose upon that, and that's ultimately what their heart does at that point, especially when after they ate from the fruit. So.
Oh yeah, I agree. After the fall, I'm talking pre-fall. Adam and Eve, and I'm going to include the serpent into the story too.
Their nature before pre-fall,
Yeah, and I can see that. That's why I ultimately think libertarianism works better with the pre-fall Adam, at least. I can see compatibilism after that. I just think that it gives a better account for original sin. But then you would have to get into exactly how what form of foreknowledge God would have over that situation. So that's a secondary issue. So that was just kind of my point. I just wanted to hear your response to that.
All right. Well, thanks for your question, Mike. Jay, are you there?
Well, I have a question.
Hi.
Hi.
Hold on a sec. Go ahead and answer the guy's question.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Okay, so Solo, what's up?
Okay. What's your thoughts on, in connection with original sin, your thoughts on the pre-Adamite view that humans existed before Adam and Eve? If you've come across that.
Yeah, and I used to actually believe in that too during my early theistic evolution years. My view on that is there is a good and a bad version to it. There is the part that does its best to be consistent, even though I don't think it's too much, but it's well within, still they're still saved and holding to at least somewhat of a biblically founded issue, which is that, you have them coming from the evolution chain within the animal kingdom, and then Adam and Eve are the first ever human beings, and then then you have the whole story. I think that's consistent. But then I've heard of some views like that are just Adam and Eve, and the whole thing is just that they are represented as the allegorical representatives, that Adam and Eve are just basically representatives of mankind and womankind. And that's an interesting thought. I've heard of this, I believe, from John Walton. And even though he affirmed that they were real people, there are people that take this view and they say that, it's only an allegory, and that's the main point of the story, is to show that not just that we're fallible, but that there's to represent the roles of man and woman and such like that. To me, that's not a consistent argument. I have problems with it personally. to me, I think it's too much liberalism that has creeped into the church at that point. But I mean,
just to be fair, which you kind of did clarify, John Walton do hold that they are real historical.
Yes, absolutely.
But he does also refute the allegory point. He uses the word archetype, and he connects it with the way Paul speaks about Adam as an archetype, like Jesus is this last Adam. Hence archetypal roles. So therefore, in that sense, it would be a third category, and you still deny it, like you'd still see problems with that.
Repeat that again.
Would you still see problems with that perspective? Because I would label that as like a third perspective in that debate on how to view it.
That while they're representatives, they're still allegorical.
So you mentioned two types. One involving allegory, and actually, wait, I'm kind of now forgetting what you're saying. I think you were alluding to two types of interpreting that, and John Walton would be a third type, that it's both historical and archetypal representation.
Right, and I think if someone were to say it's archetypal and yet at the same time historical, I mean, I think that's a interesting perspective, and I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that if they explain that there's still a historical aspect, that they actually existed.
So if they are historical, then would you then? So then the next thing would be would you then accept a pre-Adamite human race? Or that can't be possible.
Oh, okay. Now I see what you're getting at here.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, once you've affirmed the historicity of Adam and Eve, then it's fine. Like from an Orthodox perspective.
Okay. I'm just gonna once again explain personally based on what I've looked at. I think that Adam and Eve have to be the first of the human beings. So I don't think personally I could come up with an idea of a pre-Adamite race, before that's still what we would call human at that point. It's just something I personally don't think would substantiate. So that's just my thoughts on it.
No, that's interesting. I was because I'm still wrestling with that issue, and giving a concordance thing with science and things like that. But
right.
Yeah.
By the way, is there a guitar going on back?
Sorry, my bad.
I'm about to say, what the heck is that? It's soothing though, but I'm still trying to figure out the mystery.
Especially in this in-depth discussion.
If I still had my keyboard, I'd put on some nice strings for you, but I no longer have that.
I can add with some Google Music as well,
hold on, wait before we get that. I don't want to get. And of course, we have our drummer boy, Hunter. Whoa! What the? Hold on, do that again. There, I got you on screen. Yeah. Oh man, that is just awesome right there. Are you trying to talk? If so, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I was gonna say I like this one too. So there was that one. I mean, just simple drummer, stick moves.
I bet I know a drummer that is better than you.
What?
I bet I know a drummer that is better than you.
Well, that's fine. There's a lot of drummers better than me. I'm not the best.
Shit.
Ah, there's the humble guy.
He was humble. God damn.
Hey, wait. Don't make me get that holy water out when you take that name in vain, my friend. I will get it.
Take everything in vain.
Hunter, get the holy water bullets.
I mean, I got anointing oil, but
I have frankincense.
We are armed.
Literally, I have actual frankincense, like the oil.
Nice.
Right. Now it just needs like myrrh and gold, and we can have ourselves a new baby Jesus.
There you go. Sell it.
All right. So, anyways, we're gonna get to the last. We're gonna get to the last two questions, and then we're just gonna have a conversation on here. Sister Hipster, you're more than welcome to stay. But if you do have one more question before we go off air, I will be more than glad to answer that. So, unless that thing in there is the question, I'm just now noticing it. Huh. Anyways,
I was gonna say I still have my question.
Right, we're gonna get you're up next. So, Jay, what's your question?
Okay, my question is, how did the early church fathers view hell?
Well, based upon what I've read, the early church fathers, I mean, I believe the idea of hell has been the eternal hellfire aspect. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see anywhere. I've heard some people. What was his name? His ministry was called Tent Maker Ministries or something like that, and he tried to quote mine early church fathers to say that that it preaches universalism, but they're quote mines at this point. If you look at them when they quote some of the scriptures, the mentions of hell is brought about. So I'm gonna see if I can find some.
I mean, wasn't the original depiction of hell just being without God? You should love God so much that just simply being without God would be hell, wasn't it? Wasn't it that? It was only to like the new, whatever. Sorry, tired. Until God was hellfire.
Right. So I'm trying to see if I can find at least like some good quotes on the specific subject, but I highly doubt that concerning hell, that there was an idea of, say, annihilationism, for example, and there certainly was no universalism at that point.
Right. I mean, I've read a little bit on annihilism. I haven't gone too far in depth on it, but I'm just getting your opinion on it because I know from what I've noticed from your videos, you seem to be a bit better in terms of historical wise because you've studied that a bit more.
Right. So I'm actually got some quotes up right now, it seems. So let's see here on hell, believed in a literal hell, a place for unrepentant sinners. Okay, so Ignatius of Antioch in the letter to the Ephesians, chapter 16, verses 1-2, corrupters of families will not inherit the kingdom of God. And if they do these things, which according to the flesh suffer death, how much more if a man corrupt by evil reaching the faith of God for the sake of Jesus Christ was crucified, a man becomes so foul will depart into unquenchable fire, and so will anyone who listens to him. So there's that. Justin Martyr, one of the early apologists and philosophers of Christianity, no more is it possible for the evildoer, the avaricious and the treacherous to hide from God than it is for the virtuous. Every man will receive the eternal punishment or reward which his actions deserve. Indeed, if all men recognize this, no one would choose evil even for a short time, knowing that he would incur the eternal sentence of fire. On the contrary, he would take every means to control himself and to adorn himself in virtue, so that he might obtain the gifts of God and escape the punishments. So that's just two church fathers right there for you. That I am going to General.
It went well with the quote, right? It was like,
oh my gosh, I can't believe that. Just
like done deal. You can't argue against that.
Yeah. We need like a mic drop instead. That would have been better. So yeah, and I'll send the link. It may say state Catholic, but I'm reading the site, and I'm staying Protestant. So forget you. But yeah, in the side chat, I put the link for the church father quotes, and you can check them out. So,
okay,
I mean, they believed in eternal hell.
Okay.
Now, anyways, we're only gonna have time.
I mean, that's a funny thought, isn't it? I mean, eternal implies anything can happen, because if it's an eternity, so there's no eternal hell. That can't really be a thing, because within that eternity, anything can happen. So, eternal hell.
Well, just try to stay away from there.
Well, I mean, I live there.
Anyways. Anyway, so we got to try to wrap things up here. So we only have time for the questions from Hunter and then Sister. So,
Yeah.
Hunter, how are you doing, friend?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just splendid. Had a debate today, did some cleaning up a bit, and now I am just trying to wait on saving up that money so that I can start working on my cross-examination study on Islam so I can go ahead and order a copy of the Quran.
Oh wow.
Trust me, those are hard to find, I found out, because some of the online Islamic bookstores have shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that. So I just have two questions. I just wanted to see how you would respond to them.
Okay.
One, Book of Hezekiah, Old Testament, New Testament. Which one is it in?
The Book of Hezekiah. Well,
Yeah. Can't look it up. You got to be fast.
oh.
I have the answer for this one.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Don't say it.
The Book of Hezekiah is in the Old Testament or New Testament?
Wait.
Come on.
It's in neither.
Dude.
Is it? Are you sure? Is that your final answer?
That's my final answer.
All right. Yeah, you're right. There's no such thing. Did you look
Yeah.
it up?
No.
Okay, I was not sure.
Because I'm starting to remember. Wasn't this a question somebody was asked one time and they
Yeah,
were tricked?
That was me that asked it.
Who did you ask it to that one time?
It was somebody. It was like an atheist who thought he knew the Bible more than me. So I asked him that, and then he was wrong. So I was like, oh, I know more than you. So,
That's a good one.
Yeah, but I was just messing with him. Really. Okay, so my next one is the Book of Proverbs.
Yes.
There is a theory out there that it is paralleled with Egyptian writings that were way before that. So the theory is that Proverbs, a book from the Bible, is borrowed from Egyptian hieroglyphics. How would you defend that? Wouldn't people would be like, oh, it's borrowed from other religions? Kind of like the whole Jesus versus myth thing. Jesus borrowed from other religions. And now you have a book. And even though the Jesus versus myth was debunked, you have a book that is parallel with Egyptian, and actually have a picture right here in front of me of a papyrus page from the teachings of, I think his name was Ahiqar, Ahiqar. It's from the fifth. Do what?
Nothing to know.
All right. Go ahead.
From the 5th century BC, and his sayings, providing advice to his adopted son, is parallel to many Old Testament proverbs. Now, how would you defend that against somebody who says, oh, so the Bible just borrowed from other religions?
Easy.
How about you?
Oh, thank you. Easy, because, I mean, the thing is, especially when we're looking like, say, the Old Testament and the ancient Israelites, they did share some things with certain cultures. Now, some things. For example, one of the best things that I pointed out with, and I even asked Messianic scholar Michael Brown this question, and he agrees with this particular point. Have you ever heard the claim of the flat Earth thing that's going on in the Christian circles debates these days?
How people think the Earth is flat?
Yes, and they think the Bible teaches it.
Yes.
Right. So the Bible doesn't teach it. However, the language is still there, and unfortunately for them, the ancient Israelites did believe in this particular concept. I think this graphic came from, from Logos Bible Software, and what's his name? Michael Heiser always uses this picture when he's giving out his lectures. And so you have the foundations of the heavens and foundations of the earth, the great deep, you have Sheol, the waters above the firmament, and all these things. This was how basically a ancient Israelite thought was concerning cosmology. Now, the thing to understand is also the ancient Near Eastern world also shared this same idea. But the ultimate difference that I think that it comes down to is that there's an attribution factor. In other words, who is the creator? The pagans were basically attributing it to false gods. Then comes God basically saying, you know all these religions out there? They're worshiping a false god. I'm the real God. Y'all need to know that right now. So he's given them the knowledge that he is the one true God. He's the creator of this flat Earth concept that they have in their head. So he's playing off the sciences that they understand in order to relate the theological truths. So some will say whatever's the proverb thing. I don't know if the question is involved in a plagiarism thing, but if, like, say, certain parts of the proverbs in a concept is similar, well, all it is essentially is that they're attributing it to the right God instead, and they're attributing it to God, basically. That's the main thing. And you also see this with Paul in a bit. He does quote pagan philosophers, and he attributes the pagan poems that talk about Zeus as the creator and the ruler, and attributes it to God, saying, as it said about your philosophers or your poets, says, quote, something, something, and then keeps talking about Yahweh instead, and talks about Jesus. So I think that's ultimately a thing. I don't think there's going to be a problem if, they share some similars. They need to, if they're going to say that, like, if it's a plagiarism, they're going to have to really show very good evidence to indicate that that's the case, because otherwise it's just a theory.
Well, if I could, I can actually help you out with that, because from my studies, Proverbs is known as a wisdom literature, and Proverbs statements are just pretty much the thing is, Proverbs. If you were to read Proverbs every day of the month, because it's there's one chapter for each day of the month. It is like a general way of living. Like, people would look to Proverbs for how to live their lives as a Christian or anything. Or even in the Jewish way, but pretty much you ever heard of the saying, God, or all truth is God's truth? So that even means, even if, say, Proverbs was to even borrow from Egyptian hieroglyphics or anything, if it's still true that it is a helpful way of life, it's still God's truth, and the Proverbs can still use that. It's not promising hard and it's not making a hard and fast promises. It's just a general truth of a way of life. So even if it's even if the entire world came up with this way of living, and Proverbs just so happened to put it in the book, but that doesn't mean that it's not of God's way, So, I mean, that's just how I came across it, and I thought that was pretty cool, how, that will all work together. So, okay, cool. So, yeah, that's all I had.
That's an interesting thing. You actually brought up a good thing, and I'll have to keep looking more into that particular subject. So thank you for pointing that one out.
Yep. I actually learned it in Bible college, go figure. So
that's a good thing right there. We need these people in Bible colleges, otherwise we're gonna probably get some of the hopefully we don't get more of these King James only Bible people that keep rampaging on my comments saying, you need to abandon these satanic scholars. The Bible is the only creed you need.
Yeah.
Well, we like to read the Bible too, but we like to do a lot of studying on it too. So, hey, we're dedicated to studying the Word of God too.
Yep.
Anyways.
Not just the King James.
Exactly. I have 7 translations, I think, on my shelf right now too.
I mean, I'm wanting to learn Greek and Hebrew just so that I can read it in its original language. So
there is a good. I'll have to tell you about this particular interlinear I found one time, and it's both of the Old Testament and the New Testament, and it's a very good interlinear that I would recommend for people to check out. It's good critical text there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. They teach you here too, which is really cool.
I'll just say one thing. I'll just say one thing quickly. Read Proverbs 9 verse 1, and in your own study. So this is Christian and Hunter. Proverbs 9 verse 1, and related to the apkalu. And that's all I'm going to say.
The what?
So research it, just because it's in connection to the question.
Right. So you said you said another one of those foreign words. That's you had the southern part of me go, what the heck you talking about?
There's the Sumerian sages called the apkalu, Apkalu, and quite curiously, it can be seen in Proverbs 9 verse 1, which connects to the question about, Proverbs and the ancient Near East, and Christian Anarchist gave a really good answer to that.
Yeah.
But just for like added, like, whoa, I didn't see that.
Well, I'm reading it right now.
But the translation actually misses a point. So you have to, in your own time, see what I'm getting at.
I got you. I'll do that.
All right, so we got time for one more question. That's question is going to have to come from Sister because she was asking this one. And then we're going to go to the off-air party, so things are going to get crazy. Anyways.
Boop, boop.
As long as we're making sure that it's good for communion, that's fine. Just make sure the Catholics aren't invited because they are going to put up a fit if they find out we're using grape juice. I kid you not. One of the problems I've encountered.
That's the wine, though. So,
So anyways. So let's
Mormons
see.
use water. Sorry. Go ahead.
Damn, it's a little more refreshing.
You should use literal blood.
Let's not be vampires for once. Anyways.
For what?
I don't even know what the heck I'm talking about. It is.
His private life. Leave his private life alone. He likes to pretend.
Change the subject. Anyways.
Yes, let's change the subject before Demon does anything else. Anyways.
I'll suck you.
Oh my god.
Okay. This is just. Anyways.
Bye, Cameron.
Sister's hipster. So the question is concerning Deuteronomy 22 verse 5, different cultures and great. It said it's gonna keep changing the thing. And God bless. Okay, and people that have different views of what is masculine and feminine clothing. So in arguing what advice would be given for those who have black and white thinking about what is men and women's clothing or modesty, I'm not sure if I worded it right. I could go off. Sit. General. Anyways.
It fit perfectly.
So.
Like a glove.
Oh my gosh.
Wait for it. I bet you he's gonna play that one again.
I feel like he's on something right now. I don't think he's being his actual self.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm in lazy mode.
I've noticed. So yes, concerning the passage, yes, different cultures have different views of what is masculine and feminine clothing, and I think ultimately that's what we're dealing with here. Because definitely they're not writing with the 21st century American context in mind, but ultimately it is like, whatever is like a woman's outfit, as Deuteronomy, for those who don't know what it says the woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are abomination unto the Lord.
Correct.
And so I think ultimately, definitely what we're using this here is it's like, the cross-dressing aspect, and especially in the use of, say, sex in the deal. And one thing that apparently that, from what I'm looking at in a commentary right now, so far John Gill mentions Josephus explaining the whole thing, what's going on with this, and it's saying, take heed, especially in war, that a woman do not make use of the habit of man, or man that of a woman. So apparently there's like the idea of doing this as a trick to get into war. And John Gill sort of gets into that in his commentary concerning this. Let's see here. It says, as it is thought from whom the Israelites were lately come, whose women, as Herodotus relates, used to trade and merchandise abroad, while the men kept at home, and the word also signifies armor, as onkelos renders it. And so he here forbids women putting on a military habit and going with men to war, as was usual with the Eastern women. And so Maimonides, it's Maimonides, or however you say it, illustrates it by putting a mitre or a helmet on her head and clothing herself with a coat of mail. And then Josephus makes the quote. So there's that. Also, I think in the terms of sexual things. There are people that will try to, use this to be, you have the cross dressers that do put this stuff out and they do this to sell their body. They dress them basically in a false advertising. They put themselves up as something they're not. And I think that's the main problem. Some people, say actors or something, they'll sometimes do it because of a comedy skit. They wouldn't go out and actually dress up like that on an average day or to try to get with somebody. That's for a comedy thing, and so far that's really had no problem with some people, especially like myself as an actor. It's, I guess the whole thing is the context, because if you're just doing it for a comedy thing that you really not taking the thing serious, then, and you're only doing it for just like this temporary moment, that's fine. But if you're doing it for, say, like the purpose of, trying to, what happened was with, and Jay is pulling up a anime trick right there, like in the old times with, women going to, trying to go to war, like you had the Mulan thing, trying to be the man or look like a man so that way it goes to war. That was discouraged at that point, and that's definitely what's been going on at that time. But also, you have to take into consideration, also at that time you had people, especially little boys, dressing up in feminine outfits, doing something called temple prostitution. In other words, going around and they're selling their bodies to do this worship, in a sense, like to pay homage in a sense like that. And then, of course, you have what is too graphic for me to explain on here, in case there's still some little ones watching. But the point is that, there's a time and a place for things, and there's certain things that have a context. And the only thing that's only acceptable for that, in my opinion, is for sake of a comedic thing, and everything else, like trying to be a woman or trying to be a man, even though you're the opposite, or if you're trying to seduce people, or if you're trying to do things for illusions, basically, which, in other words, lying, then you're committing a sin, in my opinion. And that's just what the Bible reads to me at that point.
Or in other words, folks, just do whatever you want. Dress like just don't.
We are not crossing.
If God's offended, if God is offended by claws, then he needs to get a grip.
And on that note, we are going to hide Demon for a second. Anyways, until... but unfortunately, Demon can still type in the side chat. So please... there's General there.
Okay.
I got to tame the Demon for a second. Anyways, but that's all we have for Ask Christian Anarchist. I thank everybody for participating and asking their questions. I'm sorry if I didn't get to all of the questions out there, but hopefully next time we can do that. But I'm gonna leave the link in the live chat, so if you want to come in, y'all can participate in the after party, which I'll be in for at least 45 minutes until I gotta go to bed. So longer than I've done so far. But anyways, and hold on, we need guitar. Jay, play no. Like play some nice like rock and roll thing on that guitar, man. We need a good outro music. Yeah. So until next time, this has been the Christian Anarchist. Shalom Aleichem. Peace be upon you, 'cause I wish that upon you. Now, have a good night.